Imagine my joy at seeing this birth certificate come in. 3 copies, all beautifully certified, security paper, and that's not my mom's name. Yeah, my mom's name is Livia. This says Lena. This is going to be a problem. Why can't anything be easy, right? Italy is a stickler for this sort of thing, and if I can't get these names disambiguated, that could cancel our plans. So there's 2 main ways that I can handle this situation. One is to get the city of New York to officially update my mother's birth certificate, and there is no way in the world I'm going through the amount of BS it would take to make that happen. The second way is oaths, one and the same. It's basically a court order, an affidavit certifying that one person is another person. So Lena equals Livia. This is how these things are generally handled. I don't know what I would need to present to prove that one person is the other person in order to get this affidavit, but I assume it involves my mother's marriage certificate, which we have, because the marriage certificate contains her parents' names, her Livia name, and her date of birth. So that could be all we need. We might also need to do something like ask New York City to do a search for birth certificates for Livia on that date with those parents, just to prove there is no, evil twin lurking out there somewhere. I hope we don't have to go through that. That sounds like it would add months again. Anyway, this whole thing seems like another job for the family lawyer to handle. This document is my white whale. It's taken me 1.5 years to obtain it. I applied 5 times and was rejected every time, but it's crucial to our Italian citizenship dreams. So why was it so hard to get this? It's just my mother's birth certificate. She's still alive and we're on good terms, so it should be easy, right? But the thing is, my mother is in assisted living, and she has no utility bills to prove her address. And she also hasn't had any photo ID for 20 years. So right away that means I can no longer apply online. I have to apply via mail, which adds months to every process. So just proving her address and identity has been an incredible challenge. Like I said, I tried 5 different ways, different proofs of address, letters, notarized. In the end, I finally asked for help. We have a lawyer that handles my father's and now my mother's estate. So I finally got smart and said, hey, we have someone whose job it is to deal with stuff like this. I asked her to do it. She said, sure. Asked me for a few documents. I sent them over. The whole thing got cleared up. I got this document in a couple of months. So moral of the story is don't be shy to ask for help. So let's talk about which documents you're actually going to need. For each person, starting with the last Italian-born ancestor and ending with you, you're going to need birth certificate, marriage certificates, death certificate. And for the Italian ancestor, either a naturalization document or a certificate of non-existence for naturalization. So these documents all sort of bracket a person's life, and it lets you establish their place in the lineage. Remember, the long forms of birth certificates and things show the parents' names. So you can sort of leapfrog backwards through the documents to get to the Italian ancestor. Okay, so the certificate of non-existence comes from the federal government. You basically request a cone, as it's called, certificate of non-existence, for a specific person, and they search the citizenship archives. If they don't find anything, they send you back a letter saying they found no record of naturalization. Now, here's one that I actually did for a previous request. This is what it looks like coming from the federal government. It's kind of boring, but you can see it's actually attached to the original document, which is just a letter coming from them in this case. It establishes that the person did not naturalize before the next generation was born or turned 18, which is still maybe a little bit up in the air. Because if that did happen, that would break the chain of citizenship, and you couldn't use that lineage. After this birth certificate that I just got, the only thing I have left is another cone request like this, that is waiting to get apostilled. Last time I did this for this one, it took 10 months to come back. So I'm not, holding my breath. That'll come when it comes. But back to this. As I said, my mother's first name is wrong here. Now, the parents' names are exactly right. The date of birth is exactly right. The place of birth, exactly right. My mother does not have a twin sister, but we do know that my mother's grandmother on her father's side was called Livia, sometimes known as Lena. And my family lore says that my mother was named after her. So it looks like she just ended up with the wrong name on her birth certificate. So this is something we're going to have to clear up, because I know there is no official name change document. My mother just went by Livia her whole life. Anyway, having said that, this is really just going to be used for our second lineage. My brother and I are planning to give the lawyers 2 lineages to work with. That is 2 Italian ancestor to us lineages to work with. One of them comes from my mother's side, one from my father's side. We feel like since we're working with lawyers, it might make sense to give them as much context as possible, because when they get into the hearing in front of a judge, they may be able to strengthen the case that way. Now, having 2 lineages to work with isn't really useful if you're just applying through a consulate, because I think they don't have that kind of ability to be flexible, But if you're working with a lawyer, it can help as extra context. Why are we working with a lawyer? Because my grandmother was born before 1948. And if you're around my age, that's probably going to be the case with you. Before 1948, women didn't have the right or the ability to transmit citizenship. After 1948, when the new Constitution was ratified, women were given equal rights as men. And so while technically there was no law that said now women can transmit citizenship, every time it has come up in a court of law, it has been applied retroactively. So it's not even really a consideration to worry about. So this final document that I need is the federal apostille. Once we have that, we'll send everything to our lawyers in Italy, and they can translate the documents, and then we'll start the process of applying for a hearing, and then it's sort of in their hands for months. How long will that take? I really don't know. Things don't move very quickly in Italy. Could be another year, and then several more months to get passports. So meanwhile, as you know, we're continuing our planning. We're visiting Italy, making sure our assumptions are sound. We're talking to schools. We're making financial plans. We're talking to financial planners. I'll probably have a video about that soon. I think I might also make a video a little bit more about the details of why we decided on Luca. Because some of you in the comments were saying like that the reasoning wasn't really clarified that well. So I think I can do that in the future. Anyway, thanks a lot. If you're interested in this sort of thing, you can follow our progress by subscribing. And thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Alla prossima.